Hey, this is Tyler with T-Jack Survival. We are going to do a quick review of the Brakimo knife, so stay tuned. So put together.
That's the sound of one's dignity dying in the jungle, giving out its last gasping cries as you realize that you cannot keep up with a 42-year-old woman that carries more weight than you do.
Okay, guys, I put together a group so that you have a very diverse opinions on the knife we're going to talk about. So start out with me here. I've used this up in Utah. This is the Brakimo by TopsKnives. I made my first initial impressions were that I loved the grip. I grabbed a hold of it. It wasn't overly sized, which is usually the case with this style of knife. The second impression I thought was that I was like, man, this blade looks a little big. Then I started to use it and it just performed flawless. And I like the size because it's kind of an intermediary, so you can do a lot of chopping. Yesterday, I removed a boat ton of material from a self bow that I'm creating, and this just, it worked flawlessly. So my opinion of this is just definitely a positive. I really like the socket that it has here for bow drills, because I'm a big bow drill fan. I like the fact that it can make bow drills so well because it's wide enough to give you a plane for that hearth board. I like the fact that you can choke up and get a lot of control for a lot of the fireworking stuff. And then just ergonomically, it fits very, very well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this knife from Mr. Joe, because he had a hand in the creation of it, okay? So I'd like to ask him a little bit about the name and some of the drive behind the designs and the making of this knife.
Cool. Well, we named it Brakimo, which you probably have heard a bunch of. That's because that means very, very, very good in the Matisse language. And every once in a while I hear them and they'll say, oh, bra, is it all good? Thank you, hello. And then Brakimo, which means the best. And it was an easy word to say, which is important. And so that's why Craig and I picked it on the last expedition for the name. We had this out for 15 days in the jungle last year. We liked it. We made some modifications. The modifications were important because it made it completely a much better knife with a much finer point on the end.
So, and another thing I keep thinking, a lot of times there's a lot of coating on it. This doesn't have coating, which makes it so you can use a ferro rod on the back. I used it to scrape and plane the bow yesterday. So that's a major positive for me.
Now these are differentially heat treated, like a Japanese samurai sword. So they're a little bit softer on the back. Sometimes it might be hard to get a spark on the back, but you can. But if you take something, for instance, like a piece of flint and try and get it on the back, you have to hit it very, very hard. And they're made that way so that they're very, very, very tough.
Yeah, they're almost abuse proof. Okay.
Almost.
Yeah. So Dan is a custom knife maker, and that's part of the reason I want his opinion.
It's kind of scary to have him looking at the knives right now. You know what kind of job he does on his. I can almost tell you exactly what he's going to say.
I like the Jonas of this knife. It's a really efficient curvature to the blade. I like that upsweep. You give enough tip so you got some fine tip to work with, but you got plenty of, I mean, this is your bread and butter working surface. You don't have this long tailored tip like a lot of people do. You get plenty of work surface, but you still make a fine enough tip that you can work, you can drill, you can pick out nut meats, you can do fine carving. I like that drop. I've gotten to be a big fan of a subtle, flat drop that starts pretty early. Again, that gives you a nice working tip. You don't wind up with a really delicate tip, but you wind up with a fine enough tip that you can do fine work.
Small enough to get the job done, but not so small that it breaks.
Yeah, I like the blade length. That's what, 4.5, 5 inches?
Yeah, 4.5.
Which is, especially with my hands, that's just enough that I can take a grip right up here, and it's just a light grip, and I can work, you know. The handle feels good, especially for, I'm hard to fit because I got wide hands and stubby fingers. So usually if the handle's big enough for my hands, my fingers don't wrap around. and it locks in well.
Wow, finally. It's hard. With Dan's hands, it's hard.
Yeah.
That's why his knives are so ergonomically wonderful.
Yeah, although the ones that I make for myself never fit anyone else. And it's got good balance. I like a knife to be a little handle heavy. It makes it more agile. And on a thicker blade like this, a lot of times you'll see the weight getting way out towards the tip. And
It's not the case with this one.
No, it makes it awkward. They did a good job of keeping the balance back in the palm.
One last thing I want to throw on it too. I like that big hole.
Yeah.
Okay, I can slap a carabiner in there. I can put 550 cord in there, whatever I want.
What'd you say?
Okay, so I like the big hole in the back of it. So.
You know that hole is also a really good ender for jokes and stuff too. But one of the reasons we skeletonized the handle, and I looked at it, I'm like, man, why can we do that with the micarta too? And Polo was like, yeah, we can. And so we did, and it turned out to be a neat feature on it, just to be able to wrap paracord around there very quickly. A big giant vine to throw over, so you could throw the knife over a branch or something to put up a bear bag. But you know, you got to duck after you do that.
Yeah. That's a Joe technique.
Yeah.
Not approved by anyone else.
No.
Sorry.
Tops does not condone this use of this knife.
Yeah, do some weird stuff with it. So if you want to put like a chain on it, you can be Sub-Zero or a Scorpion from Mortal Kombat and throw it, make it
Come
a
here!
part. Yeah.
Is there a chance, or is there any chance that in the future they'll do a thinner version of that?
There possibly is, and I also agree with you. I do like thin knives as well. What I'd like to see is a thin, maybe 1/8 or even less.
So
neck knife.
I like thin knives.
I would kill for a 1/8 version of that.
One
Even
thing about
3/32.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I love the thin knives.
We like thin knives.
I do, and largely because when I'm doing finite work, as an example, cutting a notch on a hand drill board, if you've got a really thick knife, you can't get in there and do it. But I was concerned about this, but when my first hand drill kit I made with this, it worked perfectly. I was able to get right in there, 1/8 of a pie just short of the center, and it performed flawlessly. So, all right, guys.
I like to see they're bringing the grinds up. People got really focused on Scandi grinds, and I'm glad to see that people are starting to bring grinds higher again, taking advantage of that the efficiency of the low angle.
Yeah, makes it just function a little bit better. All right, guys. So I'm going to show you a little bit of footage of this stuff. If you're interested in this, go to the discussion box, and I'll have a link that leads back to TopsKnives for it. If you want to come to the jungle with us and do this stuff with Bushcraft Global, I'll leave a link down there below. If you're interested in checking out Dan's knives as well, he makes some phenomenal knives. I'll leave that link in the bottom as well. If this has been valuable to you, comment, like, subscribe, share this, and thank you for watching T-Jack Survival.